Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going deep, really deep, into a truly dark chapter of history. We're talking about Unit 731.
Unit 731, yeah. A covert biological and chemical warfare research unit of the Imperial Japanese Army during World War II.
Buckle up, folks, because this one's intense. We're talking systematic human experimentation, biological warfare, and a story that was deliberately buried for, well, for decades.
Right, exactly. This is definitely not light material.
So we've got excerpts from an article here, and it paints a pretty grim picture. To start, Unit 731, established in 1936.
In Japanese-occupied Manchuria.
Right, in a place called Pingfang.
Yeah.
And they tried to disguise it, to make it look like a simple lumber mill.
The lumber mill, and the deception went even deeper. They had these chilling euphemisms to dehumanize their victims. They called them logs, literally logs, reducing human beings to just objects for their horrific experiments. It's chilling.
It really is. It sends chills down your spine thinking about it. And this wasn't just, a small operation, was it?
No, not at all. Unit 731 was part of this much larger network, like a web of interconnected units.
Right.
Unit 100, Unit 1644, each specializing in different aspects of biological and chemical warfare research. Thousands of staff, numerous buildings. The scale was massive.
And we're talking about thousands of victims, too.
Right. In Pingfang alone, an estimated 3,000 people lost their lives, and that's just one location. The true number across all these units, likely far, far higher.
So what exactly happened inside these units? What kind of experiments were they conducting?
It's difficult to even talk about, honestly. They were designed to push the limits of human endurance, to test the effectiveness of different biological and chemical weapons.
We're talking
Vivisection, without anesthesia, infecting people with deadly diseases like the plague, cholera, even deliberate frostbite experiments.
Imagine being subjected to those horrors. I mean, it's hard to even wrap your head around it.
Yeah, one particularly chilling example is the frostbite testing. A researcher named Yoshimura Hisato, he developed this, what he called a resistance index of frostbite by exposing prisoners to freezing temperatures, just to observe the effects.
I can't even. It defies any sense of humanity. And all this research wasn't just for theoretical knowledge, right? They used it to develop actual weapons.
Exactly. They weaponized plague-infected fleas, turned tiny insects into carriers of death. Imagine entire cities under attack by clouds of plague-carrying fleas.
They also weaponized anthrax and cholera, right? And these weren't just theoretical weapons.
No, they actually used them against civilian populations.
There are chilling accounts of the Japanese army dropping plague-infected fleas from airplanes over Chinese cities, like Ningbo and Chondae.
Yeah, Chondae.
Tens of thousands of people died because of those infected fleas. The panic and the suffering, it must have been unimaginable.
A deliberate act of terror, using a horrifying weapon against innocent people. And Changde was just one instance. There were numerous other attacks. They even experimented with contaminating food and water supplies with deadly pathogens. Their pursuit of these weapons was relentless, utterly ruthless. They even had plans, for an attack on California using plague bombs. Thankfully, it never came to fruition. It was codenamed Operation Cherry Blossoms at night, but it shows just how ambitious and cruel their program was.
Chilling to think that they even considered bringing such horrors to American soil. Did the Allies know about these atrocities while they were happening?
There's evidence that Chiang Kai-shek, the leader of the Republic of China, he was aware of the biological attacks. He even sent a delegation to investigate and document them. They produced this detailed report specifically mentioning the use of plague-infected fleas in Changde.
But it didn't make international headlines. Why not?
For a number of reasons. The report didn't really gain much traction with the Allied powers until much later in the war.
So what happened to Unit 731 as the war was ending? Did those responsible face justice for their actions?
This is where the story takes an even darker turn. As defeat became, inevitable, the Japanese military made a deliberate effort to erase their crimes.
To bury the truth about Unit 731 forever?
Exactly.
So they destroyed evidence.
On a massive scale.
Yeah.
Killed any remaining prisoners, burned documents,
yeah,
demolished parts of their facilities. General Shiryu Ishii, the commander of Unit 731, he ordered his personnel to scatter, keep their secrets hidden.
It sounds like a desperate attempt to escape accountability. Did they succeed?
That's where the story gets even more complicated. And it's a truth that many people find incredibly disturbing. While the Soviets did capture and try some members of Unit 731, the sentences they handed down were surprisingly lenient.
Why? Why would they be lenient
Yes.
after such horrific crimes?
There's evidence suggesting that the Soviets might have made deals with some of those involved, offering lighter sentences in exchange for access to their knowledge of biological warfare.
So even in the face of such atrocities, Cold War politics played a role.
It seems so. It was a morally complex situation, to say the least. And it wasn't just the Soviets who made questionable decisions. The United States was also aware of Unit 731's activities. In fact, an American official, Murray Sanders, he was instrumental in uncovering details of the program after the war.
But if they knew, why wasn't there a stronger push for justice?
That's the truly shocking part. General Douglas MacArthur, who was in charge of the occupation of Japan, he made a controversial decision. He granted immunity to many members of Unit 731.
Immunity? But why? Why would he do that?
It appears the United States saw value in the research data obtained through these horrific experiments. They wanted access to that information for their own biological warfare program, essentially trading justice for scientific knowledge.
It's a chilling thought that the pursuit of scientific advancement could be used to justify overlooking such horrific acts.
It's a dark stain on history. And it raises these profound questions about accountability, the ethics of scientific research, the lengths to which nations will go in the name of power and security.
It's a lot to unpack, and we're only just scratching the surface of this story. The war may have ended, but the impact of Unit 731's atrocities didn't disappear with it.
No, you're right. The legacy of Unit 731 continues to cast a long shadow. It affects historical memory, international relations, even the way we think about scientific ethics today.
We'll delve into those long-lasting consequences in the next part of our deep dive. Stay with us as we explore the complex and unsettling legacy of Unit 731.
The war may be over, but for the victims of Unit 731, their nightmare didn't end there.
It's hard to believe, really, that something so horrific could just be, swept under the rug, like it never happened. How did they manage to keep this hidden for so long?
It was a deliberate effort, lasted for decades. Both the Japanese government and the United States, they played a role in this cover-up. Remember, we talked about the U.S. granting immunity to those Unit 731 personnel.
What's exchange for their research?
Exactly.
So those responsible were just able to melt back into society, just like that, with their secrets protected.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine the victims, their families, just staying silent.
Oh, they didn't. Individuals and groups, especially in China, they continuously pushed for acknowledgement, for accountability. But for a long time, their voices were marginalized, dismissed. It really wasn't until the 1980s, even into the 1990s, that more substantial efforts were made to bring this history to light.
What triggered that shift? Why did people finally start listening?
Well, a few things happened. The Cold War was ending. So that lessened the perceived need for secrecy, Survivors, witnesses, they felt safer to speak out more publicly. And then you had investigative journalists, historians, they started, digging deeper into the archives, uncovering more evidence of what happened.
So this wasn't just a case of forgotten history. It was a deliberate suppression of the truth. That must have been incredibly frustrating for those seeking justice.
Oh, absolutely. The fight for historical memory became intertwined with the fight for justice, for accountability. And it's a fight that continues to this day. There are still so many unanswered questions, and many victims and their families, they have yet to receive any form of official recognition or reparation.
It's heartbreaking to think that even now full justice hasn't been served. How did the revelation of Unit 731's activities impact relations between Japan and other countries, especially China?
As you can imagine, it's been a major source of tension. For China, the activities of Unit 731 are this deeply painful reminder of the brutal wartime occupation. They see it as a crime against humanity. That demands full acknowledgement, a sincere apology. and proper compensation.
And has Japan responded to those demands? Have they taken responsibility for their actions?
It's been a slow process and often very contentious. Over the years, the Japanese government has made some acknowledgments of wrongdoing. In 2002, a Tokyo court even ruled that Japan had engaged in biological warfare in China, but they've consistently stopped short of offering a full and unambiguous apology or providing substantial compensation to the victims.
So this issue continues to strain diplomatic relations. Is there any hope for reconciliation in the future?
It's a complex issue, very, very sensitive. It touches upon these deep-seated historical grievances, national identity, the very nature of justice and reconciliation. It requires a willingness on all sides to engage in honest and open dialogue, which has been, difficult to achieve.
Moving beyond international relations, you mentioned that the legacy of Unit 731, it impacts even modern scientific research. How so?
Unit 731 raises incredibly difficult ethical questions about the limits of scientific inquiry and the use of human subjects in research. It forces us to confront the potential for scientific progress to be, twisted and used for horrific purposes.
So how do we reconcile this dark past with the pursuit of scientific knowledge today?
It starts with acknowledging the past and learning from the mistakes that were made. We have to be vigilant in upholding ethical standards in research. The pursuit of knowledge should never come at the expense of human dignity and human life.
Are there specific ways that the legacy of Unit 731 has influenced ethical guidelines in scientific research?
Absolutely. The horrors of Unit 731 that were a major factor in the development of international codes of conduct for medical research, like the Nuremberg Code and the Declaration of Helsinki. These documents, they emphasize the importance of informed consent, minimizing harm to participants, prioritizing the well-being of subjects over the acquisition of knowledge.
So in a way, the unimaginable suffering of those victims led to positive changes in how we approach scientific research today.
You could say that it's a tragic irony, but their sacrifice helped establish these ethical boundaries that should never be crossed. The memory of Unit 731 serves as a constant reminder of the potential for science to be corrupted and the absolute necessity of safeguarding human rights in all scientific endeavors.
That brings up another difficult question. What happened to the research data obtained by Unit 731? What did the U.S. do with it after granting immunity?
A lot of it was seized by the United States after the war. However, there's been this ongoing debate about its scientific value and whether any good can come from using information obtained through such horrific means.
It's tainted data in a way.
Yeah.
Right. Knowing how it was obtained, it makes it hard to view it objectively.
You could say that. Morally, it's undeniably tainted. Some argue that it should be destroyed, as it represents this permanent stain on the scientific community. But others, they suggest that it might hold potential medical benefits, particularly in fighting infectious diseases. For example, there have been calls to release Unit 731 data on the plague to aid in developing new treatments, vaccines.
And that creates a real ethical dilemma. How do you weigh potential benefits against the horrific way that the data was obtained?
There are no easy answers. It's a question that each individual and society as a whole must grapple with. There's no simple solution, and any decision will likely be met with both praise and criticism. It's a powerful testament to the enduring and deeply unsettling legacy of Unit 731.
So even decades later, the ghost of Unit 731 continues to haunt us. It forces us to confront these difficult questions about ethics, justice, the very nature of scientific progress.
It's a reminder that history isn't just a collection of stories from the past. It's a living force that continues to shape our present and our future. We have a responsibility to learn from these dark chapters and actively work to prevent their recurrence.
As we move towards wrapping up this deep dive into the world of Unit 731, I keep coming back to the victims. We've talked about them in broad terms, logs, test subjects, casualties, but they were real people with lives, families, dreams.
You're absolutely right. It's so important to remember their humanity, to resist reducing them to statistics or nameless faces in a history book.
Yeah.
Each one of those victims had a story, a life that was brutally cut short. We owe it to them to remember their individuality, their suffering, and their loss.
As we wrap up, I think what sits most uneasily with me is this potential for medical advancement. That could maybe come from their research, but it's just so hard to ignore the fact that it was all built on such unimaginable suffering.
It's a question that really just, it never goes away. It sparks debate everywhere, even within the scientific community. Like, can we truly separate the data from the methods, the horrific methods that were used to obtain it? Can you really reconcile those potential benefits with the undeniable moral cost?
It feels almost impossible. And yet, there are people, they argue that this data, however tainted, could hold like the key to some major breakthroughs, especially in treating these infectious diseases. Some even call for the release of Unit 731's research, all of it, on the plague, to help develop new treatments and vaccines.
It's a huge dilemma, a complex dilemma, and there are no easy answers. I mean, on the one hand, you have the potential to save lives with this information, but on the other hand, you're benefiting from research that was, well, it was conducted in the most inhumane way imaginable.
It makes you think, would using that data, even for a good cause, even to save lives, would it somehow vindicate the actions of those who are responsible? Would it cheapen the suffering of the victims?
Those are valid concerns, and in the end, there's no single right answer. It's a moral and ethical, I don't know, a quandary that we all have to grapple with, each individual, society as a whole.
It's like the legacy of Unit 731. It goes so far beyond just the historical facts. It makes us examine our own values, our beliefs about science, about progress, about the cost of knowledge.
It forces us to confront the worst of humanity, the potential for good intentions to be twisted into something truly monstrous. It reminds us that the pursuit of knowledge, no matter how noble the goal, it has to be tempered by ethics, by a deep respect for human life.
Well, thank you. Thank you for guiding us through this incredibly difficult subject. It's been eye-opening and more than a little sobering.
It's a story that needs to be told, even with all the unsettling details, remembering the victims, acknowledging the atrocities. That's crucial, not just for history, but for us, all of us.
And to our listeners, we know this has been heavy, this subject matter. It's undeniably disturbing, but we urge you, don't turn away from this history. Engage with it. Learn from it. Let it fuel your commitment to a more just world, a more compassionate world. We'll have some resources in the show notes, help you delve a bit deeper. Until next time, keep seeking knowledge, keep asking questions, and keep striving to make the world a better place.